The purpose of this demonstration is to show how to capture and reuse organizational knowledge. Traditional methodology simplistically defines business architecture as the relationship between people, process, and technology. We agree with this definition as a starting point and add the dimension of strategy. A shortfall of this model is that it is too high level to be of any real benefit, and the true value of the business architecture model is derived from understanding the linkages at the next level of detail for each of these 3 points. The process view details the interrelationship between the business process, the organizational chart, and the management model. The technology view models the interrelationship between the various applications, the data and information flows, and the process service points. The people view details the interrelationship between the position as defined in the organization chart, the roles those positions fill, and the specific individuals assigned to each position. Much like rotating a crystal ball, this model allows us to view the same interrelated organizational information from any of 9 different starting points. But how do we set up such a model? Business process modeling tools feature a multi-dimensional object repository that allows us to capture an object once and use it in many different ways. Examples of these objects would include things like process diagrams, including their steps, the roles involved in executing those steps, and the different technology types involved in supporting those particular steps in the process. Here's an example. The web version of the knowledge model seen here was published from a modeling tool. This is what the employee would see when finding out something about their area. One of the ways to navigate the model is to drill into the layers as follows. If we click on the demo company logo, we can get into the various layers of the model. Let's say, for example, we're interested in the area of corporate services. We click on corporate services, finance, procurement, accounts payable, and we're presented with a selection of processes in that particular area. There's another way to navigate the model, and that's to use the tree, navigation tree structure on the left of the diagram. And if we start off by looking at this particular one called business architecture, this represents that drill down sequence that we went through in the previous view. And here again are the various processes in scope for the project. So let's visit the crystal ball aspect that this model presents us. If we start by looking at it from the process perspective, and if we click on process as the catalog, we can see that it lists all of the different business processes in scope. Each one has a brief description of what the purpose of the process is. And if we click on the first one, invoice, receipt, and coding, it brings up a process diagram. And you can see that this is a typical flow diagram showing the different steps. It is mapped in swim lanes, depicting each role that executes the steps in the process diagram. Each of these steps also has further information. For example, this one called code invoice. If we hover over it, it gives us a very short description of what activities are involved in coding an invoice, including some time metrics. If we click on that step, we're able to see where else that particular object is used, and this supports the capture once, use many view we spoke of earlier. So there are 2 process maps, one in head office and one in region, using that exact same step called code invoice. And we could obviously click and visit those. If we were interested in viewing our model from a different starting point, the aspect of technology, we'd click on this catalog view and we'd see that there were 2 different kinds of technology or application systems in use here. And if we were interested in this one called Oracle, it would explain again a brief outline of what the system is designed to do. If we click on it, it tells us all of the different steps in all the processes in our library where this particular technology supports activities. If we click on the first one, it tells us that Oracle is used in a process called payment file conversion at the step called correct the payment file and invoice record. And we could click on that process map and it would bring up that step. And again, we could hover on it to get further information about that step. This particular one is only occurring in this map, so this is not used in multiple places. And finally, if we were interested in looking at our library from a people perspective, we would click on this catalog and bring up a listing of all the roles involved in our process model, again with a description of each role. And if we wanted to find out where this particular role was involved, the AP officer, it would bring us a catalog of the following information: a brief description of the role and also the different processes where that role is involved. This is clearly a very busy role. It's involved in 5 different process maps. We can hover over each one and see where they occur. And if we click on one of those process maps, it will tell us that the AP officer has that particular set of activities in this particular process. So again, this is the start of a job description for the role called AP officer, starting to build. There are a few other things of interest in this particular model as well. We've got a catalogue called frequently asked questions. It's all very well as a business analyst seeing an architecture of a business from a set of process glasses or process perspective, but a user typically gets stuck and needs help at a particular point in time. So they would like to go to a list of frequently asked questions. For example, give me help on how to code an invoice. So if I clicked on that particular step, it would take me to the description of the information. If I was interested in where it occurred in a process, I could obviously go and have a look at that view. And finally, we have another catalogue of use called forms, and this is where we are able to load documents which are of use in helping the user to execute a process. We've given some examples here. An amendment request form could be loaded, and this comes from any organizational data repository. It gives a live example of the form. What does this mean for your project? If we examine the relationship between the level of complexity of the project itself and the amount of effort required and the cost involved of delivering it, and we look at the use of traditional multiple knowledge capture tools, we see this relationship. These tools would include things like text documents, spreadsheets, process drawing tools, electronic document management systems, the corporate intranet, and training videos, to mention some examples. The obvious issues arising with using multiple vehicles for capturing and reusing knowledge are that there is no single source of the truth and there is very poor version control. If we look at single knowledge capture tools, because of their functionality, business modeling tools vastly improve the productivity on a business improvement project. They eliminate the issues arising from traditional approaches, and when combined with a simple architectural framework, they provide an ideal mechanism for day-to-day reuse of organizational knowledge.